जय श्री नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंचाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। श्रीमतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनं हृद्यन्तश्च अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सतां। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। सर्वशास्त्राब्दी पीयूष सर्ववैदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाध्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवतो प्रभु कलिदन्तोतिदादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्वसेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगीन मद गुरुन मन महाधन मद निस्तारक मन भाग्य मद आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादा इन अति नीच करा हा ना मुंचा कदाचिन माम प्रेम न रित कंथयो स्पृह। O Srimad Bhagavatam, O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Accompanied by pure love of Krishna, please manifest yourself in my heart and throat. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Thank you for joining. Okay, so today we are going to start with chapter number 25 of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So, what did you see in chapter number 24? Anyone remembers? Any points? Where are we in the story of Srimad Bhagavatam?
Kardama Muni um, spoke to Kapila Dev, and then he left home and went back to Godhead.
Okay, that's good. So, so how did we come to this point? So we have been reading the story of Kardamuni and Devahuti, and then we came to the point of the entire how they got married, how they enjoyed. Then after they enjoyed, then And they were blessed with 9 daughters, and then Kardamuni was ready to leave. But then Devavati actually said, please bless him with fearlessness. That means she asked for a son. And then this chapter actually starts off with Kardamuni actually instructing Devotee that you should worship the Supreme Personality of God. And because Vishnu previously had already told Kardamuni that I will appear as your son. So Kardamuni told Devotee, you worship the Lord and the Lord will actually appear in your womb. And then we read about the appearance. I mean, Lord Kapila appeared. Everything was so auspicious. And then uh, uh, and then we read, like, and then we read about how Brahma comes and he says that, oh, Kardam Muni, you have actually followed my instructions so properly that, I asked you to create progeny, but what level of progeny have you created? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared as your son. Right? And then Brahma informed Devotee that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is now in your womb, and he is the one who is going to actually cut the knots of material attachment. So that's what we are going to see today, how Kapila Dev is going to cut the knots of attachment for Devahuti. And if you remember previously, we also read the point that when Kardamuni was actually going to leave, Devahuti, what did she say? She said that I have been thoroughly cheated by Maya, you know, because she was thinking that, oh, I'm associated with such a saintly person as Karda Muni, but I did not make use of that association, right? And then I just spent all those years in simply sense gratification, and have not used of. And then she was feeling that, oh, I have been cheated thoroughly by Maya. But here, Brahma is actually informing Devahuti that the Supreme Personality of God who is going to be born as a son, he will give you that wisdom by which you can cut away all the knots of attachment. And then we read about how Kardamuni he offers prayers to Kapila Muni, right? And right, so we see how Kardamuni he approaches the Lord in a secluded place. He offers obeisances. He spoke to him, offered different kinds of prayers. And then in the last, after offering prayers, what did he say? He said, oh Kapila Dev, I actually want your permission to renounce. I want to leave and go to the forest. Right? And he actually um, gives different reasons that we discussed, that even though the Supreme Personality of God has taken birth in the womb as the son of Kardama, Kardama still wants to leave and go to the forest, right? So we read different reasons that how he had followed like Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha one way, and Sanya. Everything was so perfect that he wanted to continue and set the right example. He's after all a Prajapati, so he should set the right example. Hence, he actually left home. That was one of the reasons. And second, we read that his mood to the Lord was actually dasya, but he was thinking that if the Lord is in my house as my son, then my mood to him will be more of vatsalya, right? So hence he, did not want that mood to actually change. And then he said, anyway, I have to renounce. So why not do it right now? The time is appropriate. I should renounce right now. And then Lord Kapila Dev actually blessed him and he said, like, yes, you can renounce. And and then we see how Kardamuni he renounced and he accepted Mohan Vrat. He fixed his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He became free from false ego, and in that way he became liberated and he attained the path back home, back to Godhead. So last time we ended with this point that Bhagavatam is filled with examples of personalities who attain perfection all the way going back home, back to Godhead. Right? And Kardamuni is such a personality. And particularly for us, for like grahastas, this is actually a very nice example of showing, of a person who actually got involved, who initially had the desire to get married, how he worshiped the Lord. Then the Lord blessed him with a wife, of the nature that he was desiring, how he had children, how he enjoyed that grahast ashram. And then finally, he renounced and then he attained perfection. So very nice example and so many lessons. We ended last session with so many lessons that we learned from the life of Kardamuni. Right? So that completes that section of Kardamuni. Now Kapila Muni is there, Devahuti is there, right? So mother and son. Let's see what happens between the mother and the son. So actually the next 7 chapters is all about the conversation between the mother and the son, right? Kapila Muni and Devahuti. Right? So In Bhagavatam, if you see, one of the most philosophical sections of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is which section? You know, the longest and the philosophically deep section of the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually Uddhav Gita, which comes in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is like more, actually, three-fourths of the 11th canto is that conversation between Lord Krishna and Uddhav. It's the entire Uddhav Gita, right? Now, if you see after that, so that's one section. This section where we have 7 chapters of, one of this philosophical discussion between a mother and son is actually one of the other most very prominent section of the Srimad Bhagavatam where this philosophy is discussed very detailed, and particularly it's talking of Sankhya philosophy, right? Because Kapila Muni is known to actually elaborate on Sankhya philosophy. So, what is a Sankhya philosophy, which we'll read today as Adhyatmika Yoga, right? What is that? All that we'll see today as the starting of the entire section, and the chapter is titled The Glories of Devotional Service. Right? And again, like other sections, when they start, we see first thing that what happens when we read other sections, the eagerness of the hearer, right? It always starts off with this, like how the personality who's hearing is so eager to hear, and he asks a question, and then the speaker glorifies the question. It's like kind of a standard. Now we have seen that again and again repeating. So we'll start the chapter with that, and then we'll come to a point of how Devoti first she asks questions to Lord Kapila, and then how Lord Kapila starts answering her questions. Okay. And that's going to be our discussion for today. Are there any comments up to this point? Or any thoughts? Okay, everyone, ready to start? Okay, let's start. So text number 125, 325, 1.
Shonaka Uvacha Kapilastatva Sankyata Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Jata Swayam Aja Sakshad Atma Pragyaptaye Nrinam.
Sri Sanaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race.
Okay. So thank you. So here it is actually, how does this entire section start off with? Kapila's Tattva Sankhya. And we know Kapila Muni is known to actually explain what? Sankhya. So here it says, Kapila, Lord Kapila, Tattva, the truth about what? Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy. So Kapila, who is the expounder of Sankhya philosophy, Bhagwan Atma Maya. Even in Bhagavad Gita, we see this Atma Maya, the Lord actually appears out of his own internal potency. So again, the same point that that supreme personality of Godhead, who is the expounder or the speaker of Sankhya philosophy, he took birth by his internal potency. Bhagwan Atma Maya. Jata Swayam Aja Sakshat. Right? So he is Ajaha. Ajaha means unborn. Even though he is unborn, Jataha, he actually took birth by Atma Maya, by his own internal potency. And then the last line says, Shakshat Atma Pragyaptyaya Nirna. Right? And what was the purpose of his incarnation? So he was Atma Pragyapta, to disseminate the transcendent knowledge to whom? Nirnam. Nirnam, for the benefit of the entire human race. Right? So for the benefit of the entire human society, Lord Kapila actually, he personally, Shakshat, he is actually personally appearing, not through his energies, not through his representative, but he personally has appeared to disseminate this knowledge for the benefit of the entire human race. Right? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually makes a point that whenever the Lord appears, that appearance of the Lord is his pastime. Right? It is his birth pastime. This is Leela. Right? This is Leela. Hence the word Atma Maya. Yeah. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually makes the point that how the Vedic knowledge. So Prabhupada says material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. So basically, what is the point Prabhupada is saying? If you see the entire Vedas, the Vedic wisdom, what do they, like the majority of the Vedic knowledge is focused on what? How to live happily in this world. And that living, that way of living, will actually gradually bring us to the mode of goodness, where we are actually free of the mode of passion and ignorance, and we raise ourselves to the mode of goodness. And why mode of goodness is so important? Because in the mode of goodness, the knowledge expands. Right? Knowledge expands. So even if you see in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one of the symptoms of the mode of goodness, what does Krishna say? Goodness means the senses are illuminated with knowledge, right? Goodness is associated with knowledge, right? Hence, Prabhupada is explaining the Vedic knowledge is gradually bringing us to a platform of goodness, because in goodness, there is knowledge, right? Passion means there is no knowledge, but one actually enjoys material benefits, right? Passion is all associated. Enjoy, I want to enjoy my senses. Ignorance means what? There is no knowledge and there is no enjoyment. So, if you remember in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how does Krishna explain the three modes? In mode of goodness, what initially is? Krishna says initially it tastes as poison, but long term it is actually nectar. Right? Passion is what? Initially it tastes as nectar, but long term poison. And what is ignorance? It is simply poison. Right? So similarly here, goodness means knowledge. Right? Initially there's effort, but long term it gives knowledge. Passion means no knowledge, but initially it feels like enjoyment, but then it is a lot of suffering. Ignorance is only suffering. So no knowledge and no enjoyment. Right? And Prabhupada makes a point that those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, this knowledge cannot be appreciated by them. Right? Even in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, we see Krishna clearly makes a point. He says, Bhogeshware prasaktanam taya parata chetasam. He says those are simply, their entire mood is only like, I want to enjoy my senses. For them, what is their situation? The determination to take up devotional service will not come about. Starting of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes this point that one has to, if you're simply in the mode of passion and ignorance, then that, that mood of getting the knowledge will not come out. Hence, the importance of mood of goodness, right? So oftentimes, even in preaching, when we are sharing Krishna consciousness, for people who are, just simply like so materialistic in the mode of passion and ignorance, many times our initial conversations with them is just to bring them to a platform of goodness. And many times they talk of this as bridge preaching, right? We actually bring them one step higher, like, bring them towards the mode of goodness, because once they are in the mode of goodness, then they can actually accept this knowledge. Right? And then Prabhupada also points out that how this knowledge is not sufficient. So gradually from passion and ignorance, we're bringing them to goodness. Within goodness, they get the knowledge. That is very good. But is that enough? No, they have to take up spiritual activities. Right? So Prabhupada makes a point, knowledge itself is not sufficient. They have to engage with seva. Right? So once they have the knowledge in the mode of goodness, then when they gradually engage them in practical devotional service, then the knowledge actually becomes what? Realization. So we read this formula previously. Knowledge plus devotional service, seva, equal to transcendental realization. You get that realization, right? When does the gyan become vigyan? When it is associated with seva, right? So that's the points Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Okay, next number 2. It's okay, everyone? How about this point? Yeah. So how elevating oneself to a mode of goodness, and then from that, engaging them in platform of devotional service. Okay.
Text 2. Na yasya varshmana pumsam varimna sarva yoginam vishruto shruta devasya bhuri tripyanti me savaha.
Translation Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shaunak continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature a yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So here in this verse, Prabhupada further the conversation is continuing, and Sonal Krishi is saying, na hi asya varshamah pumsa. The varsha manaha, that means greatest, that there is no one greater than this personality. So we're continuing from the first verse where Sonal Krishi is actually talking about Lord Kapila, and he's actually saying, so first verse, what was the main theme? That he takes birth to actually, though he's unborn, he's taking birth by his internal potency to give Sankhya Tattva. That's first point. Second point here is saying that this personality, there's no one greater than him among men, right? Or so Prabhupada in the purport, he quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita 7.7. Which that was? That there is no one greater than the Supreme Personality of God.
Mata parataram nanyat.
Mata paratam nanyat kinchit astin dhananjaya. Right? There is no truth greater than that personality. So the first line is basically saying there's no one greater than him. He's the greatest among one. So to explain this, Prabhupada also, he quotes this एको बहुनाम यो विदधाति कामम नित्यो नित्यानाम चेतनस चेतनानाम एको bahunam yo vidadati kama. And what does this mean? Nityo nityanam. There are so many eternal beings, right? We are eternal. The Lord is eternal. Chetana, so many conscious beings. But among all those eternal and conscious beings, there is one who is eko bahuna. Of all of them, there's one yo vidadati kama, who is maintaining the remaining. Right? So that one is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? He is actually maintaining all other living entities, and hence he is the greatest. Okay. Now further, he says, Varimnaha Sarva Yogina. And then not only he is the greatest among all men, he is the foremost of all yogis. Right? Sarva Yoginam. Of all the yogis, he is actually the greatest. Then third point, he says, Shruta Devasya. He's the master of the Vedas. And having made these 3 points, therefore he says, Bhuri Tripyanti Me Savaha. Right? That even though I hear repeatedly about him, I am not satisfied. I want to hear more and more about this personality. Right? So Shaunak Rishi is basically here. He is expressing his eagerness to hear. And we hear this again and again, right? Whenever a theme starts, what do they say? Oh, this is the Supreme Personality of God, and He's glorious in so and so way. So I want to hear more about Him. I'm not satisfied. The more I hear, the more I want to hear. Right? So similarly, here he's making the point. Bhuri tripyanti means satisfied. Me asavaha. I am not satisfied to hear. I'm not satisfied to hear so much about him. I want to hear more and more, right? More and more. And then Prabhupada in the purport, he actually makes the point that to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is tripyanti. This is the real satisfaction of our senses, right? In previous chapters, what did you see? What is the perfection of our eyes? A perfection of our eyes. Actually, Kardamuni, when he sees the Lord, what does he say? The perfection of my eyes is that I'm getting your darshan. So similarly here, the perfection or the satisfaction of hearing is to hear about this Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So hence he's making the point that to hear about him is actual pleasure of the senses. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says here, when it refers to Nahi Asya Vashmana Pumsam, that there is no greater Pumsa person than this personality, he says that refers to Shirodakshai Vishnu. That's an aspect of the Lord as Shirodakshai Vishnu. Then there's no greater person, no yogi as great as him. And for that, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is referring to that person, that this is the same personality as Dattatreya. So he's making the point that this personality is the same personality as Shirodakshai Vishnu, who actually appears again and again as incarnation. And this is the same personality as Dattatreya, who is the best among yogis, right? Therefore, to hear about him is actually the perfection of hearing. Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport, he establishes how the Lord is the supreme among all. There's no truth greater than him. And then further Prabhupada makes a point that anyone who actually associates with the Supreme Lord becomes a first-class yogi. Right? So not only the yogi, not only the Lord is the greatest of all yogis, but anyone who associates with the Lord can become a first-class yogi. Right? And then Prabhupada here very nicely makes a point that devotees, because they are always connected with the Lord, they become as good as the Lord. Right? How we say the spiritual master is what? As good as Hari. Shakshat Haritena Samasta Shastra. All the Shastras say what? That the spiritual master is as good as Lord Hari. Right? So Prabhupada is referring to that. And he says not only that, that yes, the Lord is the greatest, but sometimes the devotees become greater than the Lord. So actually the verse does not talk about all this, but Prabhupada, in his mood of glorifying the devotees of the Lord, he's actually saying, yes, the Lord is the greatest, but sometimes the devotees of the Lord can become greater than the Lord. And what is the example for this? That the Lord did something, but a devotee did something bigger than that. Any examples?
No, Prabhupada.
Perfect, Srila Prabhupada, right? So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, this message should be spread all around the world. And he did in India, right? But it was Srila Prabhupada who actually came and he did all around the world, right? So if you see in terms of the glory, Srila Prabhupada is empowered to such an extent that his activities are one way greater than the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? But this is only by the empowerment of the Lord, right? Any other example?
Dhruva Maharaj, can we say Dhruva?
Hanuman.
Hanuman comes to our mind, right?
Yeah.
Hanuman, he was empowered by the Lord, and then, he went with the search and he jumped all across, right? Lord Ramchandra built a bridge and crossed, but Hanuman just jumped across, went to Lanka, and he alone, wanted to burn the entire city of Lanka. Hanuman. Dhruva, in what sense, Mother?
And like because of him, 21 generations are liberated both sides, right?
No, Prahlad, right? I mean, that is yeah, I mean that's a side benefit. That's the side benefit of a devotee. Anyone becomes a devotee, then based on his level of devotion, Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, that is 3, 7, or 21 generations are actually liberated.
Prahlad. Prahlad, Prabhupada.
Uh,
Making us think.
like somewhere or other, we can see that yes, the Lord is empowering them. But when we see of like when the devotee is becoming greater than the Lord, then Prabhupada certainly, Hanumanji certainly, they are very clear
Right,
examples.
right.
We also have Yashoda Devi who can tie the Lord.
Yes, yes. Like who can tie the Supreme? He is the Supreme Personality of God. But out of devotion, out of her love, the Lord is conquered and he actually chooses to be bound by Mother Yashoda. Right? So Prabhupada is saying, yes, the Lord is the greatest, but the devotee of the Lord can become greater than the Lord. Not that the devotee wants to become, but out of that love, out of when the devotee serves the Lord to such a way that the Lord is so pleased that he says, okay, take all the Shakti. You become greater than me. I want to glorify you, beyond even glorifying me. Right? So how in that conversation, like someone asked, like a disciple asked Prabhupada, that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, Priti Viti Ache Jaga Nagaradhigam Sarvatra Pacharam. He said this message is spread all over the world. Then why did he not do it? And Prabhupada humbly, what did he say? He left the task for me. Right? So the glories of Srila Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to glorify his pure devotee more than himself. So he actually empowered Prabhupada to do this all around the world. Right? Okay. And the third point here is the point about the na tripyanti, that the real pleasure of the senses is to hear about Krishna, right? So, so Prabhupada says that the words, the teachings, and the instructions of the Supreme Personality of God, that everything that's connected with Him actually enlivens our senses. So the point that we can actually, like this point, we should have the conviction that the only way our senses can be pleased is when they are actually connected with the words, the instructions, the teachings of the Supreme Personality of God. That's the only way that senses can actually be attain pleasure, right? So that conviction we should have, and we'll come to this point later also. I'm mentioning this because further we'll read about the point that how one can actually accept this path of bhakti? What is the important criteria? But this is one of the points I want to mention now, which will be elaborated further, that having the conviction that in this material world, contact of the senses with the sense objects, unless it is actually connected with Krishna, there is actually no happiness. Right? So that point, Prabhupada mentions here, and he says, this is the secret of happiness. That somehow, if you want to be happy, connect your senses with Krishna. Right? You're seeing the form of the Lord, you're hearing Krishna Katha, you're hearing Krishna Kirtan, you're tasting Krishna Prasad, then there is happiness. Otherwise, there's nothing. Okay, and then Prabhupada concludes this purport very nicely. He says, Bhagavad Gita can be read or heard many times. This is the last part of the purport. But because it gives great pleasure, the more one reads Bhagavad Gita, the more he gets the appetite to read and understand it. And each time he gets new enlightenment. So Prabhupada is saying, the more we read Bhagavad Gita, the more we actually feel pleasure. And then more we want to read Bhagavad Gita. Right? It's like you're eating something, and the more you actually, the more you are actually tasting it, the more you want to taste it. That's how Bhagavad Gita is. Your appetite to read actually keeps increasing. And each time you get a deeper meaning, a new enlightenment. That is the nature of transcendental message. Similarly, we find that transcendental happiness in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The more we hear and chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. The Prabhupada is one way is sharing his own experience. And he's saying, similarly, we find, like normally Prabhupada, like he doesn't speak in this, like first that I find or we find. But here he's saying, we find transcendental happiness in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That the more we hear, the more we become happy. Right? So gradually, as we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, if we are regularly absorbing ourselves in Srimad Bhagavatam, then we start getting so much taste that we find that transcendental happiness in Srimad Bhagavatam. We actually want to hear this more and more and experience that happiness from Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? When we hear like personalities like Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, how he has studied Bhagavatam in so much depth, and when we speak, we can see how he is actually deriving so much taste and relishing Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So that kind of taste can come if we actually absorb ourselves in Srimad Bhagavatam. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Every day absorb ourselves in Bhagavatam. Right? So Prabhupada very nicely ends the purport that this is how we can get happiness. Connecting our senses with the Lord. Hearing Bhagavad Gita, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam again and again and again. Okay. Any comments up to this? Good. Okay, text number 3.
Text 3. Yad yad vidhate bhagavan swachandatmatma mayaya tani me shradadhanasya kirtanyan yanukirtaya.
Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency.
Yeah. So this is the third verse that Sonak Rishi is actually speaking, and he's saying, therefore, why therefore? Because he made in the first verse, what did he say? That how the Lord appeared out of his Atma Maya. Then second point, how he is the most knowledgeable, most worshipable, he is the master of the Vedas. And the more I hear, the more I want to hear. Therefore, do what? Therefore, please precisely describe. Yet, whatever Vidate, he performed. So whatever the Lord has performed, all the activities, I want to hear about them. And the Lord here is described by 2 words, Swachanda Atma, right? Which Prabhupada translates as full of self-desire. And we'll discuss this. And then second one, Atma Maya. Again is coming from the first verse, and then again third verse, Atma Maya. By his internal potency, whatever activities he performs, you please describe them to me. Right? And then further, he uses the word Tani. How much of the Lord's activities he wants to hear? Just one of them? Or describe 3 pastimes? No. Tani. All of them. Right? So this shows how eager Shaunak Rishi is to hear about the Lord, that he says, Tani, describe all of them. Don't stop. Just keep describing all these activities. And then Me Anukirtaya, right? So please describe them to me. And then further we see the word Shraddadhanasya, right? Again and again we are seeing what is the qualification of a hearer of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Two things we see, right? What are two things? Again and again this point comes. One is Shraddadhanasya, right? So one is having that faith, and the second one is eagerness.
Lovely.
What's that, bro?
Lovely. Eager.
Oh, greed, yeah. Okay. Laulyam is greed, yeah. That eagerness to hear, and second, to hear with faith. Right? So these are two qualifications. And here Shaunak Rishi is actually saying that how does he express his eagerness to hear? He says, Tani, please describe all of them. I want to hear all of them. And second, Shraddadhanaya. I am with faith. I want to hear all these pastimes. And Kirtayani, he is worthy of praise. Therefore, Anukirtaya. Please describe all these activities of the Lord. Right? Now, one word here, I was thinking about this, Swachanda Atma, full of self-desire. What does this mean? The Lord is described as full of self-desire. Anyone wants to try to explain this? Like Prabhupada doesn't talk about this, but I was just thinking about this word, Swachanda Atma. Like Prabhupada, the main point in purport, he focuses on Anukirtaya. Anu means to follow. Kirtan, to glorify. So Anukirtaya means you actually describe this following the authority of the previous acharyas or following a parampara. What you have heard, so you describe. What you heard from Sukadev Goswami, please narrate those activities to me. Anukirtaya. Okay. And Prabhupada talks about this importance of following parampara to actually, so not mentally just concocting some pastime. Oh, this happened, or Radha Krishna did this. No, no, what we have heard, that we actually speak. That's Anukirtaya. But Swachanda Atma, full of self-desire. What does it mean, full of self-desire? Are we full of desires? Yes or no? But
Yes.
can we say that we are full of self-desire?
So, Prabhuji, my take on this is Krishna wants to experience different kinds of relationships or different kind of moods. So he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of, because he wants to enjoy the devotional service, the love that Radha Rani has for Krishna. And then he comes as a child for Yashodama to enjoy, to have that mother and child relationship. So he has all those desires, and he's able to fulfill those desires by taking any kind of body or form that he wishes to. And which is why I feel like if he's full of self-desire, so he's fulfilling his desires by taking those various
Incarnations.
incarnations and forms and bodies. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. So the Lord is full of self-desire. And what does that mean? So self-desire, actually, the form of the Lord is his form is described as Akhila Rasamrita Murti. Murti means the form is what? Akhila Rasa Amrita. The form of Lord is actually made of full of Rasa Amrita, the nectar of Rasa or the relationship. That is what is the self, right? So the Lord is what is that self? Self is Akhila Rasa Amrita. Akhila means all the rasas that are there. That is the form of the Lord. So hence his self-desire is to experience each one of that rasa. You know. And hence he comes in different incarnations. He has different relationship with different devotees, and he is enjoying that rasa. So the whole purpose of as we mentioned, Akhila Rasamrita Murti, he wants to experience that rasa, right? So hence the Lord is justified as Swachanda Atma. For us, yes, we are full of desire, but we cannot say that that is our self-desire. Why? Because right now we are connecting ourselves with something which is not our real self. Right? We consider I am a boy or I am a male, hence I want to enjoy with a female. But is that our real self? No. Next time you could change your gender. You could be a female and this, right? So all those is changing. But maybe we have, as sadhakas, maybe we have a drop of that self-desire that, yes, our real self-desire is we want to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So mostly we are full of unself desire in one way, right? And the self-desire may be a tiny drop that, yes, I want to serve Krishna, I want to serve my guru. That is our true desire, but it's just small. But for Krishna, he's made up of this Akhila Rasa, and hence he wants to experience. And hence is Asachanda Atma. He's full of self-desire. Okay. Okay, next verse, text number 4. Let's see what Sutta Goswami now says.
Sutta uvacha dvarpayana sakastvevam maitreyo bhagavanstata prahedam viduram prita anvikshikyam prachoditaha.
Sutta Goswami said, the most powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasadeva. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows.
So basically here, Sutta Goswami is saying and that, okay, so let's see this word. So why does he, like up to this point, he's all describing about this conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. But now he's actually glorifying Maitreya as what? Dwapayana Sakha. Right? Didn't we read this earlier? That Maitreya is a Sakha of who's Dwapayan? Vyasadeva. Right? We read this earlier that how Maitreya and Vyasadeva were actually friends. So now, why is he like imagine like you're talking about someone, and then all of a sudden, like in between, you start glorifying that person, and you're saying that person's so great, he's this and this, and then he continued to speak. He continued to speak. So why is that glorification? Again, so that we as listeners of Srimad Bhagavatam refocus our attention that Maitreya, who is actually here described as Bhagavan, Maitreya is described as Bhagavan and the friend of Vyasadeva. So what he says is going to be so important. So let's hear with full attention what Maitreya Rishi has to say to Vidura. Right? So Bhagavatam on purpose is doing this. Sutta Goswami on purpose is actually again glorifying Maitreya. That again we say, okay, Maitreya, Bhagavan Prabhupada translates as most powerful, almost as powerful as the Lord, or spiritually very advanced. Right? That Bhagavan Maitreya, Dwapayan Sakha, who is a friend of Vyasadeva, then Tatha Praha, in that way he spoke to who? Viduram. Right? And why did he speak to Vidura? Pritaha, because he was pleased with Prachodita, or the questions that Vidura asked, right? Therefore, encouraged in that way, he actually started speaking transcendental knowledge. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that questions and answers are very satisfactorily dealt with when the inquirer is bona fide and the speaker is also authorized. Right? Perfect questions, perfect answers. They will happen when the speaker is actually speaking according to the wisdom, the authority, the parampara, and the questioner is actually asking questions directly on spiritual topics that will actually be beneficial for everyone. Right? So when that is there, this combination is there, then the answers are very, very satisfactory to our real self. Right? Okay, and Prabhupada says why Maitreya is referred to as Bhagavan, because he's spiritually so advanced and he's a friend of Vyasadeva. So hence certain personality, like sometimes we see Narad Muni is mentioned as Bhagavan. Not that he is the supreme personality of Godhead, but he is as powerful, almost as powerful as the supreme personality of Godhead. So hence they are referred to as Bhagavan. So let's see what Maitreya Rishi spoke to Vidura. Right? Oh, one more point I would like. So last sentence of this purport is very nice. When there are discussions on transcendental topics between devotees of equal mentality, and we see this point has been, why of equal mentality? We talk often of like our devotion, our association should be between like-minded devotees. Right? So Prabhupada is making the point that if they are both the speaker and the hearer are of equal mentality, then the conversations are very fruitful and very encouraging. Right? So seeking that like-minded association, like what does it mean to have that like-minded association? Isn't everyone speaking on spiritual topics? I mean, everyone in the sense like devotees, like in ISKCON, we have so many devotees speaking on spiritual. What does it mean to seek out for a like-minded association? Anyone? Any
It's
thought?
the mood of the person.
Mood of a person, yeah.
It's contagious. So if you are associating with a person who's constantly thinking of Krishna, and then we rub off some of that with their mood, we will be in that.
Okay. So yes, we are talking of among devotees who are actually speaking about Krishna. There are certain devotees that we may feel more inspired by.
Right.
So that kind of association, that's why it says like-minded. Swajatiya is actually said in the Sanskrit. Swajatiya. Jata one way means like we use it for caste, right? But not that caste, but that like-mindedness. So even, each one of us, we may be particularly inspired by, oh, this devotee, or this guru, I really feel so inspired by his classes. So there is some element of that like-mindedness there, right? So that's the purpose is when that mentality, when there's equal mentality in that way, that like-mindedness, then the conversation is very fruitful, very fruitful. Okay, text 5. Let's see what Maitreya Rishi speaks.
Text 5. Maitreya Uvacha Pitari Prashtite Ranyam Matu Priya Chikirshaya Tasmin Bindu Sare Vatsid Bhagavan Kapila Kila.
Since I've already read, should we skip down to Partna?
Yeah. Pratana Mataji, can you go? Because the other Karuna Mataji, Koshaya Mataji already read.
Maitreya said, when Kardava left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of Bindu Sarovar to please his mother Devahuti. Thank you.
So here basically is saying Maitreya Vacha. So this basically now the chapter is starting in one way. The first 4 verses are basically just that initial conversation between encouragement of Saunak Rishi to hear more and Suta Goswami saying, yes, I'll speak, and then he's speaking. So here is a Maitreya Vacha. Pitari Prathite Aranyam. Aranyam means forest, right? Pitari, when the father left to the forest. Who's the father? Kardamuni. After Kardamuni left to the forest, then what happened? Matu Priya Chikisaya. So with a desire to please Matuhu. Matuhu means mother. With a desire to please the mother, Avat sits a Bhagwan Kapila. Bhagwan Kapila, what did he do? He stayed back. Right? He stayed back. Though the Lord, he actually appeared to give the Sankhya philosophy, and then we'll see that how he actually travels all over to give Sankhya, but just to please his mother, he actually stayed back. Kila, indeed. Why indeed? Okay, and then it ends with the word Bindu Sarovar. So he actually stayed back at Bindu Sarovar just to please his mother. Why the word indeed is actually used? Indeed, he stayed back, right? So basically, we see how the Lord, his purpose of appearance is to go all over and Nrinam, for all people share that Sankhya philosophy. But because of to give pleasure to his mother, to give pleasure to his devotee, the Lord decided to stay back. So we see this again and again. Is the Lord independent? Yes. First verse of Bhagavatam, it says Swarat. But that Swarat becomes dependent on the love of his devotee, and he acts based upon what pleases my devotee. Even though the Lord okay, this is my reason of appearance, but just to please my devotee, I will change my plans so that I can please. So here it says Kila. So Bhagwan Kapila, he stayed back to give pleasure to his mother. So Prabhupada in the purport, he says that once the father leaves, either Vanaprastha or sannyas, then it's the duty of the grown-up son to take care of the mother. Right? So we have heard this few times that the woman first, they are under the care of the father, then husband, and the husband leaves, and then grown-up children, they take care of the mother. So Prabhupada makes that point. So as a son, Kapila as a son was actually doing his duty of serving his mother to the best of his ability, and hence he stayed back. Right? And then further, Prabhupada also says that how it's a duty of the husband that as soon as the son takes charge, the husband should leave the house. And Prabhupada so strongly says, last but one sentence, he must leave. He must leave. Right? So we see again and again Prabhupada giving that emphasis that one should not be engaged with grandchildren, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren until the end of the life. At some point when the children and the son take over, then the father should say, okay, now my children are taking over. Now is the time. I must leave. I must get detached from family life and focus on my spiritual life. I'm very close to my final exam. Then let me give my full heart, dedicate myself for this final exam. Okay. Next 6.
Tam asinam akarmanam tattva margarga darshanam swasutam devahutyaha dhatu samsmarati vachaha.
Hare Krishna. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows.
So tam asinam akarmanam. Karma means activity. Akarmanam means no activity. So when once Kapila was actually as a son, was just sitting leisurely with his mother, right? So like why is that mentioned? That we see like mother-son connection. So son is just leisurely sitting with his mother. Then Tattva Marga Arga Darshanam. And this son is the one who could actually show the marga, show the way, the ultimate goal of life. Darshanam, he could show the highest, the ultimate goal of life. Swa Sutam Devahati Aha. And then Devahati said to her Suta, to her son, Dhatu Samsmarta Vachaha, remembering the words of Dhatuhu. Dhatu referring to Brahmaji himself. So we discussed in the previous chapter, when Brahma came and spoke to Kardamuni and Devahuti, what did he say to Devahuti? This is actually in the previous chapter, text number 18, that Brahma told Devahuti that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is now within your womb, and he will cut off all the knots of your ignorance and doubt. Then he'll travel all around the world. Right? So Brahma had already informed Devahuti that your son is going to cut away all your knots of attachment. So now Devahuti is thinking, now son was just leisurely sitting, and she was thinking that Brahma said that my son is going to give me that wisdom, that knowledge by which I can get free from this world. So maybe now is the time. Let me ask him these questions. So let's see what Devahuti asked her son. Text 7.
Devahutiruvacha nirvina nitaram bhuman asadindriyato darshanat yena sambhavyamanena prapanandam tama prabho.
Devahuti said, I'm very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses.
Prabhu, your voice is a little low. I don't know if you're away from your microphone.
How about now, Prabhu?
Yeah, good. Very good.
Okay. Devahuti said, I'm very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of this disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you. So here, so this was the point I had earlier mentioned. What is the first thing that Devahuti is saying? Nirvina, I am disgusted. And first he says, Bhuman. Oh my Lord, I am Nitaram Nirvina. I am very much disgusted. With what? Asat Indriya Tarshana. From the Asat is Asat Indriya Tarshana. From the agitation of the senses to impermanent things. Right? Isn't the senses always looking for pleasure on the impermanent side? Right? Normally as sadhakas, we realize that the senses normally never look for sat, eternal. Underneath, that's what is looking for, but externally they appear as looking for different objects of sense gratification, right? So the desire for sense objects, that asat, and the senses, because they are always agitated, where can I eat nice? Where can I see something nice? Where can I hear something nice? Where can I smell something nice? Because they're constantly agitated. What is Devotee saying? I am very much disturbed by this agitation, right? And then she uses the word sambhavya manena. And because this is being prevalent, that means what? They're still acting upon me. I am very much disgusted, but still the senses are pulling me to do this, do that, get this, get that, right? And then she says, Prabhu, oh my Lord, prapanna andham tamaha. And because of this agitation, I have fallen into andham tamaha. Right? Andham means darkness. Tamaha means ignorance. Prapanna, I have fallen into this darkness of ignorance. Or proper translate, abyss. Abyss means like a bottomless pit of ignorance, like a deep dark well. Right? So devotee is making this as the first point. Now, imagine mother and son are sitting, and then mother is saying, oh son, I am very much disgusted. Right? Now, why is this important? Like, why is she starting off with this, right? So Prabhupada also purport, he says that asad indriya tarshanat is significant, that pulling of the senses, right, to asad is actually, that agitation is significant. Why is that? Because in different life, okay, every lifetime we change our body, but the thing that is constant is what? The senses are agitated. In different species, maybe different senses are agitated more, but in every species we take, every form of body, there is agitation of the senses. And because of that agitation of the senses, we take birth. We change our bodies. We go from one life to another. We keep changing, keep changing. So we may get human form of life. Then if we are too attached, agitation of the tongue, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to taste everything, right? And we may taste, start eating meat and all those things. Then what happens? Then we may say, okay, nature will say, okay, he's eating meat. Let me give him the body of an animal. We get the body of a tiger. And then what? Does the agitation stop? No, and the tiger also will be like, okay, I said a tongue, and the tongue wants to eat meat. Right? So agitation of the senses is our cause of us taking birth again and again and again. And unless we come to the stage of, oh, we are tired, we are disgusted with this agitation, one cannot actually take up spiritual knowledge. So even in Bhagavad Gita, we see, when does Krishna start speaking the knowledge to Arjun? When Arjun comes to the point of karpanya dosho pahata swabhava, that Krishna, I am thoroughly confused. I don't know what is my duty. You please tell me. So unless we come to this stage, we cannot really absorb spiritual wisdom. Unless we are disgusted with the enjoyment, with the agitation of senses, we cannot take up spiritual knowledge. So Prabhupada in the purport says, why is this constant agitation? Right now we have temporary senses. Our senses keep changing, right? And but beyond these temporary senses, there are actually permanent senses. And these permanent senses are contaminated by matter. Therefore, So Prabhupada makes the point that, what is this temporary senses and permanent senses? Right? So basically, he's making the point. Right now, we have temporary senses. But beyond all this, there are permanent senses. What does that mean? That we all have a spiritual form. We have spiritual desire to see something spiritual. We have a desire to hear spiritual. You have desire to taste spiritual, to smell spiritual. Those are the permanent senses. But because those permanent senses are now contaminated by matter, hence the senses are attracted to asat instead of sat. Right? So hence our process of Krishna consciousness is what? That we want to purify the temporary senses to actually become permanent senses where they can actually relish the real sat, spiritual knowledge. Right? So what is the definition of devotional service? We know two definitions of devotional service. What are they? Anyone knows? One in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and
Anyabhilashita Sunyam.
Anyabhilasita Sunyam Jnana.
Sunyam Jnanakarmadhyana.
Right.
Anukulya.
And what is another definition given by Rupa Goswami, just in elaboration in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? He sees this verse, and this verse also, devotional service can also be defined by, and he quotes a word.
Sarvopadi
Yes, Sarvopadi Tat Paratena Nirmalam Rishikesha Sevanam. Right? By our senses, when we serve the Lord of the senses, that is devotional service. Right? So our senses right now, because they are contaminated, they are looking for asat. But when with the same senses we serve Rishikesh, then what happens? Tat Paratena Nirmalam. The senses are purified. So with purified senses, when we serve the Lord of senses, that is devotional service. So that agitation of the senses, which it wants to, serve, right? It wants to do something. It wants to be engaged. When that is purified, that is pure devotional service. Right. So now the question is, so Prabhupada says, let's see. Unless one becomes tired of material sense gratification, there is no opportunity to hear transcendental messages from a person like Kapila. Devotee expressed that she was tired. Right? So how can we become tired of material sense gratification? How can we become disgusted from this temporary agitation of the senses?
By getting more and more taste of what should actually be the true form. Once we get the taste of that, automatically we may feel disgusted of the current living.
Very nice. So when we get the higher taste, then we feel like, oh, what is this? This is so boring. There is actually no taste here. It is so boring that we get tired of it. How do we get that taste? Right? So this is the first point. That we, by getting a taste for spiritual practice, param dasha nivartate, then we get tired of like material sense gratification. How do we get the taste now?
Listening, association, reading, getting exposure to all spiritual activities.
So yes,
things that take us closer to Krishna.
Right. So you're mentioning all the limbs of bhakti, like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, right? All those activities. So when we engage in all those activities, that still has to be one more aspect here. When do we actually get taste? Yes, we engage in activities of devotional service, but those activities should be done in such a way with an intention to give pleasure to Guru and Krishna. And when we do the activities with that right intention, then when the Guru gets pleased and gives us his mercy, his blessings, then by that we actually get taste. Because this taste is actually not something of this material world. We cannot just engage in certain activity and say we'll get taste. It is something spiritual, and that taste will come when it actually comes by the mercy of the Guru. So our process to get tired or disgusted with material is, yes, we engage in all the activities of devotional service, but with an intention to give pleasure to Guru and Krishna. And by that, in right attitude, right intention, then when the Guru gets pleased, gives us the mercy, then the taste comes. And when with that taste, then we feel, oh, this is so disgusting. This material sense gratification, senses are always so agitated. It's so, I'm just tired of this. I just want to turn to Krishna. I just want to turn to. So that conviction comes with the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Okay? Everyone okay so far? So it's like often we give this example, like, our senses looking for happiness in the material world is like looking for happiness, water in a desert. There's no water in the desert. There's only mirage, right? You see a mirage and you think there is water, but actually there is no water, right? I think even B. Krishna Maharaj mentioned this. Insanity means what? Doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result. And that's basically us. We are doing the same thing. Like, we see something, then we say, okay, I'm tired of this, let me see something else. And we expect that, oh, now I'll get happiness. Now with this, I didn't get happiness here, but if I do this, I'll get. And that is actually kind of insanity, right? So that's definition of insanity given. But so basically, like, we need to come to this point that unless one becomes tired of material sense gratification, no opportunity to hear Harikatha, right? And when we are tired, then we really absorb the Harikatha, right? We still have hope in this material world, then our hearing will be we hear a little bit, maybe some benefit, but we still keep our hope here. But if we are really disgusted, then we'll absorb like a sponge absorbing water. Right? Okay. Text 8.
Tasya tvam tamasondasya tushparasyadyparagam satchakshur janmanam ante labdham me tvad anugrahat.
Hare Krishna, 325.8. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. Hare Krishna.
Right. This is a very nice verse. Prabhupada says this is a very instructive verse because it talks of a relationship between a guru and a disciple. Right. So here it says, Tvam, your lordships, is my only means for what? Tamasya andhasya, to get out of this darkness of ignorance, which is dusparasya, which is very difficult to overcome. Right? Where in Bhagavad Gita we say this material world is very difficult to overcome.
Mama Maya
Mama
Duratya.
Maya Duratya. Very difficult. Krishna is saying very difficult to overcome. But here she's saying, no. Yes, it is very difficult to overcome, but by okay, Tom, your lordship is the only means. And then he says, Adya Paragam. Paragam is actually a very nice word. Prabhupada elaborates on this. Paragam means to cross from one realm to another realm, from conditioned life to a life of freedom. So you are the means by which I can cross over this very difficult, insurmountable ocean of material existence. I can cross over by you, right? Sat Chakshuhu, because you are my transcendental I, Chakshuhu, right? I, Anugraha, and by your mercy, I can actually cross over this ocean. And then Janmanam Ante Labham, and I have attained your association after many, many lifetimes. So this we can actually pray to spiritual master in this way, that this ocean of material existence is very difficult to overcome. Our attachments to this material world are so strongly rooted, like a strong knot in the heart, very difficult to break. But oh Guru Maharaj, by your mercy, you are my transcendental I. By your mercy, I can cross over this very difficult ocean of material existence. Right? And after many, many lifetimes, I have actually attained your association. Right? So, like, this reminds us of the verse that Brahmane Brahmite Konyo Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. That Brahmane Brahmite, we are actually going through this entire Brahmanda so many times, again and again and again. But one who is fortunate gets the association of a guru who can actually give him Krishna. Right? And also every day morning we sing in the Guru Puja prayers, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhamui Savadhana Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai Eva Bhava Toriya Jai Krishna Papti Hoy Jaya Hote. So similarly here he's saying, I'm bowing down to your lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By your grace, what can happen? Eva Bhava Toriya Jai. We can cross over this bhava, this ocean of material existence, and Krishna Prapti hoy jaha hate. Then we can obtain the mercy of Krishna. Only by your mercy. Right? And then what is the next paragraph? Chakku daan dilo jai, janme janme prabhu se. Right? So you are my chakshu. Chakshu means, again, the same word chakshu we see in this verse also, right? Sat chakshu. You are my transcendental light. So we are praying to a guru that you are chakshudan dilojay. You open my darkened eyes and fills the heart with transcendental knowledge. You are my Lord, birth after birth, right? Divya Gyan Hriday Prakash. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. So this is the glories of a spiritual master, right? And then also another verse that Prabhupada mentions in the purport is every day Mangalacharan. What is the first verse? Om Agyanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. Right? I am in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. And hence I offer my obeisance. So the Guru is Sat Chakshur. He's opening our eyes. He is our transcendental eye to actually give us to see things in their real perspective and to finally take us back to God. Okay, text 9. So actually this is nice, we are seeing this flow. That first in text 7, what did devotee say? I am tired. I am tired of this agitation of the senses, right? I am sick of this disturbance, right? I am disgusted with this. And then next verse, she says, oh, you are my guru, right? Now, if you see in Bhagavad Gita also, both these aspects are there in that verse. Karpanya dosho pahata svava. I'm confused about it. Prichami tvam dharma samudaya. Yash shreyasam nishitam bhuhitan. Shishyasam shadimam tamu. I am your disciple. And you are the one who can actually give me this knowledge. And hence I surrender to you. So both these aspects are important. One is our disgust with the material nature. And second is turning to the devotees, turning to Guru, turning to Krishna to actually give us relief from this suffering. And when both these aspects are there, then spiritual wisdom will descend. Okay, text 9. Let's see further what devotee says.
Ya adyo bhagavan pumsam ishvaro vai bhavan kila lokasya tamasandhasya chakshusurya ivoditaha. Oh, my turn. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe.
So further, once we take shelter of the Guru, the first thing we want to glorify the spiritual master. So here she's saying, Adya Bhagwan, you are actually the original Adya, Adi, right? Adi Purusha. You are the original Supreme Personality of God. Pumsam Ishvara, you are actually the Lord of all living entities. Bhavan Khila, indeed you, Lokasya Tamasya Andasya Chakshu Surya Uditaha. Right? So she's saying, not only you are my transcendental eye, but for all people of the world, you are actually the transcendental eye. You are the one who's going to disseminate the darkness of ignorance of this entire universe, right? So you're not only my eye, but the eye of all people of the universe. And the example is given just like what? Surya Uditaha. When there's darkness all over the world, when the sun arises, immediately all the darkness is vanquished. Similarly, when the Krishna's avatar descends, by the descent of the avatar, then that is darkness everywhere is actually destroyed. Right? And hence you are the one to destroy this darkness all over the world. Right? There's a similar verse for Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godadaya Pushvanto Chitro Samdo Tamo Nudo. That is actually saying Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has arisen just like the sun has arisen to dissipate the darkness of this world. Okay. Next verse then.
Atame deva sammoham apakrastum tvam arhasi yo vagraho ham mametiti etasmin yojitastvaya.
Translation. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations.
Mm. So further in this verse, she's actually, Prabhupada gives a wonderful purport to this, but she's actually making the point that expressing that exclusive shelter of the Guru. So first is discuss in material world. Second is turning to the spiritual master and saying, you are the transcendent, you can remove my ignorance. Third is actually expressing that exclusive shelter. So she says, Atha me deva, now my Lord, arhasi, be pleased upon me. Sammoham apakristam tvam. You dispel my great sammoha. Sammoha means illusion. You dispel my great illusion. Avagraha aham mameti iti. Yojita Tvaya. Right? Then why is this illusion? Because of the misconception of aham mama. Right? Aham mameti. Right? So this means the concept of I and mine. Because of this false ego of I and mine, right? We consider we are this body and everything connected to this body is mine. Because of this false ego, I am actually in sammoha, in great illusion. Therefore, you, O Lord, you please dispel this illusion. And why I am in this, why do I have this false ego? Because I have engaged by your Maya and identified with the body and mind in terms of relations and positions. So why is that point of exclusive here? Because she's saying that why I am in illusion? Right. So the first point is why is she in Sammoha? Because she has a false ego, right? And because of false identification, she's aham mameti. And why she has a false ego? Because of Maya. And why, and who is Maya? Maya is your energy. Because Maya is your energy, and hence I'm turning to you because only you can take away your energy of Maya's influence over me. Right? Even the verse, Devi Esha Gunamaya, Devi Esha Gunamaya, Mama Maya Durataya. Then what is, so first line is very difficult to overcome. What is the second line? Mam eva ye prapatante mayam etam tanante. But who surrender to me, I very easily take away Maya. So here she's saying, because you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is your Maya. By your Maya, I am in illusion. Therefore, you please take away this Maya. Can we on our own self overcome Maya? Right? Krishna himself is saying Duratya. We cannot overcome Maya on our own. But when we take shelter of Krishna, then we can overcome. Then Krishna will say, oh, he is under my shelter. Devi Esh Gunamai, Mama Maya, which is the other verse? Mahatma Nastu Mahaprada, Devim Prakritim Ashrita. When we take shelter of Krishna, then we come under Devi Shakti, the internal potency of the Lord. Then when one takes shelter, he says, okay, Maya, he is under my shelter. Now he is not under your jurisdiction. You don't need to do anything now. He's under my shelter. So Maya, you leave. You leave. You don't affect that person. Right? So similarly here, she's saying, I'm turning to you because this is your Maya. By your Maya, I am in false ego. Right? And hence I am in illusion. That way, you please take this away. Now, Prabhupada starts the purport by giving a definition of Maya. First sentence. The false ego of identifying one's body as oneself and of claiming things possessed in relationship with this body is called Maya. So what is it? False ego of identifying oneself as this body. I am this body. That is Maya. Right? And because of saying I am this body, we claim this is mine. So identification and claiming, this is actually Maya. Is an object itself Maya? No. None of the objects as such are Maya because they are all energies of the Lord. But because we falsely identified, as ourselves as so and so, and because we claim, because I am so and so, this is mine, that is actually Maya. So that the propensity to falsely identify and claim, that is actually Maya. Okay. Further Prabhupada quotes, he says, yeah, okay. He says, anyway, it's Krishna's Maya, right? Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham riddhi sannivisham mata smitir jnanam apohanam cha. Right? Krishna says, I give remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So, I mean, so it is Krishna's Maya. Then why has Krishna put some living entities into Maya and some who are free from the influence of Maya? Is Krishna partial? So Prabhupada is asking this question. Is Krishna partial? He said, you be under influence of Maya. You come to me. Right? You be in my association. You be under Maya. Right? Krishna is partially, he's selecting all this. So Prabhupada asks this question. Does this mean that the Lord discriminates by engaging one in devotional service and another in Maya, in sense gratification? Is the Lord actually discriminating partially? Right? Okay. Then Prabhupada says, no, that's not that the Lord is partial. The Lord is merciful. Either way, the Lord is merciful. How can we understand this? When the Lord is putting a living entity under the influence of Maya, it is a Lord's mercy. And when he is freeing the living entity from the influence of Maya, it is a Lord's mercy. Everyone understands this point? Why is it the Lord's mercy that the Lord puts the living entity under Maya?
RRA.
To fulfill our self-desires.
What was that, bro?
To fulfill our self-desires.
Fulfill our self-desires. Mataji, what did you say?
RRA. To rectify all.
Okay, that's the final goal. But here the point is, how is the Lord merciful? The Lord is not partially discriminating. You be under Maya, you be under my influence. No. Either way, it's the Lord's mercy. When the Jiva wants to desire to forget his constitutional position and say that I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, it's the Lord's mercy that he says, okay, if you want to do that, here, go into the material world, but I'll be with you. I'm not going to leave you. I will be with you. And the Lord accompanies every jiva as Paramatma. Lord with me. So it's the mercy of the Lord. We give this example often. Father and child. Child is just so stubborn. I want to do this. I want to do this. Father says, no, not good. Child says, no, I want to do this. Okay, you do it. Okay, you can do it. But I will be there. Anytime you realize your mistake, I will help you. I'll bring you back. Right? So that way it's the Lord's mercy. So it's not that the Lord is partial, but either way, it is a Lord's mercy. So either through his mercy, he puts the living entity under Maya, but if the living entity wants to get free, again, it's the Lord's mercy that he takes away the influence of Maya. Right? And then, one way is like, often Prabhupada gives this example. A government, like, he may put one person in prison and other person is free to move. Is the government partial? No. I mean, this is the citizen broke the law, and then the government says, okay, you go in the prison, you get rectified, and you come out. Right? So similarly, that's also one way the mercy of the government. Right? So it's not the partiality. So that's one important point that Prabhupada says. Okay. And again, Prabhupada in his purport stresses on that point that only when one is disgusted and frustrated, right? The first aspect we talked about. And second, what one must do? One must sincerely surrender to the Lord. So one is disgusted and frustrated with material enjoyment. Second, sincerely surrender. Then when these two things are there, then the Lord is so kind that he frees us from entanglement. Okay. Then further, the last point of the purport, Prabhupada says, Sarva dharma paritajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashami ma sucha. The Lord is saying, I will free you from all sinful activities. Right? Well, how do you define a sinful activity? Maybe someone can say, how do you define a sinful activity?
Anything against the dharma.
Anything against dharma is sinful. What is our dharma?
Savai Pumsa Parodha.
God.
Worship.
Any other answer?
A sinful activity is one done for our own sense gratification.
Okay, sinful activity is something that's for that we engage in a sense gratification. Okay. So Prabhupada, he gives like the definition of sinful activity. He says, activities performed in forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna is sinful activity. I mean, who can give that level of definition? Like if you generally talk, even like someone who's a knower of the Vedas or from a pious family will say, what is sinful activity? Anything like meat eating, intoxication, gambling. Okay, I can accept that as sinful. But if someone is even engaging in pious activity, right? Let's say someone is saying, oh, poor people, I'm feeding the poor people. Prabhupada is still saying, still is sinful, right? He's not accepting that as the highest. He's saying even that is not perfect. If someone is doing charity work without understanding his relationship with Krishna, that is still sinful. Right? So in the highest definition, whether you consider pious or impious activities, both of them, unless they are in relationship with Krishna, it is useless. Right? So that level of definition, I'm sure like, if you tell this definition in like a class where there are many Indians, or, those who know Vedic culture, they will not accept. They'll be like, how can you say giving charity is sinful? You know, you know. So this is the highest definition, because if someone is giving charity without the connection to Krishna, that means what? Oh, I am so great that I can help all these people. And with that mood comes what? I am the proprietor. I am so great. I am the controller. All these people, I am so great. I can take care of them. I can feed them. So unless we are not saying that, we should not take care, but we should do it in relationship to Krishna. That Krishna has given me this opulence, which I can use to serve other living entities. It has to be in relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, Prabhupada saying it's still sinful. Right? So he says so-called pious activity is also sinful in the ultimate sense as these activities, like someone is doing charity, but without relationship to Krishna, he's still under the three modes of material nature. Right? Therefore, all his activities but service to Krishna is actually sinful. And as long as we are under the modes, we'll be attracted by illusion of material attachment. So those are a few points in the purport. Right? So one is, what is Maya? Right? Definition of Maya from this purport. Second is, when the Lord is putting someone under Maya and someone under his own Devi Shakti, is the Lord partial? We answered that. Actually, either way, it's the Lord's mercy, right? Then third point is that what is sinful activity? Anything which is done forgetting our relationship with Krishna is sinful. The three excellent points in this purport. Okay. Okay, so let's see if there are any comments. We'll take a break and then we'll continue.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you repeat the 3 points, please? Okay,
the first point was what? What is the definition of Maya? Right? So maybe someone can quickly say, what was the definition of Maya Prabhupada is defining? Clear, I just mentioned it.
The false ego of identifying one's body as oneself and of claiming things possessed in relationship with the body is called Maya.
Yeah, so what are the two main aspects there? False identifying and claiming. When we false identify who we really are, then that is Maya. And because of that, we actually claim, this is mine, that is Maya. Right? So object itself is not Maya, but our relationship with the object, if it is in terms of false identity and claiming, then it is Maya. The second point is what? If the Lord is putting some jivas under Maya and some under his own energy, is the Lord partial? What's the answer to this?
No, he's very merciful in both ways.
Okay, how is he merciful on both ways?
Because when the living entity wants to enjoy away from the Lord accompanies, and when he turns towards Lord, he'll be merciful, helping him.
Helping, right? So either way, even the Lord is putting one under prison as his prison of material life, it's a Lord's mercy. Right? And third point is the point about what is a sinful activity. So anything done forgetting our relationship with Lord is actually sinful. And this kind of highest level of definition only Srila Prabhupada can actually give. And maybe other people may not accept this, but if you see the whole philosophy, then this makes so much sense. One will really appreciate this definition of sinful activity. Okay, so let's see. We had many points starting. So what we started with 3 verses where Shaunak Rishi glorified Kapila Dev, why he wants to hear more about Kapila Dev. Then we heard Suta Goswami say that, okay, Maitreya Rishi, Bhagwan Maitreya, who was the Dwapa and Sakha, he actually spoke to Vidura, answering the questions of Vidura. And then what did he say? He said about how Kardamuni left, then Kapila was with his mother. And then once they were sitting leisurely and Devotee remembered, Brahmaji has said that my son will give me freedom from illusion. Let me ask him. And then she starts to ask. And what was the key points? What we learned from Devotee's asking? What was the first point in Devotee?
Disgusted with the material desire.
Very much disgusted with this agitation of the senses to asat, to impermanent things. Very much disgusted. Second point, what did she say? I'm taking shelter. I'm turning to you. And third point, she glorifies and expresses her exclusive shelter on the Lord, saying that Maya is your energy, right? Hence, you can take it away. Hence, I'm turning to you. You please dispel my illusion caused by your Maya. Okay, any comments, realizations into this entire discussion?
Develop a higher taste by pleasing the Guru.
Yes, how can we get disgusted in material world, material enjoyment? By getting a higher taste. We get higher taste by engaging in activities of devotion service with intention to please Guru and Krishna. And then by that activity, Guru gets pleased and then he gives us taste. Taste is not of this material world, that spiritual taste. It is actually obtained only by mercy. Thank you. Mataji, yours.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So I was just thinking a relation between the Gokarna and Dundubi, like the eagerness of, he was so disgusted with the life, like he was suffering in the ghost body, and then he was really eager to achieve the goal of land, to come out from that situation.
Dundubi and what's the other name?
Gokarna.
Gokarna, yes. Right? So one had the ghost body. And so both of them heard Bhagavatam. But because he was hearing with so much eagerness, he was in a ghost body and suffering so much, he said, okay, this is my only way I can get relief. And after 7 days, then the tree in which the ghost was residing, that cracked. And then he got liberation. Right? And then the other person was thinking like, I also heard for 7 days, but nothing happened. I'm not getting liberated. And here is the answer, because you did not hear with that eagerness as another person heard. Thank you. Very nice example. It's actually in Bhagavatam Mahatmya, the story is there. Thank you. Any other points?
Prabhu, I like the concept of temporary senses, and also the permanent senses are related to our spiritual form. That's a new concept I heard today. Mm-hmm. And also the taste. The taste is very transcendental. It does not come from this material world, and only with the krupa of Guru and Krishna will get that taste.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Nice points. Anyone else? Please share.
I like the point, Prabhu, where you said about the agitation of the senses, which is the cause of which is causing us to have birth after birth, right? To especially if we are accustomed to eating, and then we get the tongue taste. And the example that you gave was about the tiger and able to eat the meat, and the fact that we can based on the senses, we get the next life.
Thank you, bro. Nice point. The one way we can think that
And that
life.
we cannot,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
So based on that senses, now we focus on those senses, and based on those senses, we are not able to accept the spiritual knowledge because we are focusing on those senses.
Yes, yes, very nice. We can imagine that how many lifetimes we are here, changing our life one after another body, another body, another body. Birth, disease, old age, death, again, birth, disease, old age, death, just to actually satisfy our senses, just because of this agitation of the senses. But in our journey of our existence here in the material world, the point where we actually said, "Oh, I am thoroughly disgusted with this. How many lifetimes I have tried? It's not working. It's not working." When we actually come to that point, then that opens the door for us to seek out for spiritual wisdom. Thank you.
Prabhuji, I would like to share an experience I had yesterday at Sam's Club. And it just came to me now that we were talking about it. But I was in line, and there was a mother and daughter, and they looked exactly alike, except that the mother was older and more like she was old, and the daughter was, they both had gray hair, and the daughter looked exactly like the mother. But then, because of the age difference, one looked a little bit younger, but then the other one was old. And I was just thinking, if she just looks at her mother and she looks at herself in the mirror, like, she'll understand that how she's going to be in that same position as the mother. And that should kind of give us the realization that we need to get out of, there has to be a way to get out of this birth and death, like birth, old age, death, right? And I was just standing in line and just contemplating about how we are all covered by this, by Maya. We are just we don't see it. We are just not capable of seeing it. And
Yeah.
we are so, I'm personally so glad that we have you giving us this knowledge. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So Prabhupada's mercy. But actually, it's a nice point that you made. I have seen this that's online. You can search for some softwares that will say how you will look when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, And then you can see they'll just take your photo and they'll make you look like 60, 70. So yeah, the body is changing. But if the senses, the agitation of the senses does not, we don't actually try to get free from this agitation, even we are 80, our body is falling apart. But will those desires die? No, actually it becomes more painful because the desires are there, but now the instruments are too weak to satisfy those desires. Then it becomes more and more painful, and the desires still are like bothering us. No, no, I want to do this, but I cannot walk properly. I cannot do this. I cannot taste. I cannot eat this because now my old age, I cannot do this. All those. So it becomes more and more painful, you know. So the only way is we have to okay, now is the time. Let's try to understand the mood of Devahuti and see how she's staying disgusted and then turning to Krishna, turning to Krishna, turning to Krishna. And by that turning to Krishna, then we will actually experience the highest taste. Well, thank you. Very nice one. Okay, anything else?
Krishna Prabhuji,
Yeah.
the definition of a sinful activity, when you do, even charity becomes sinful if it is not in a system. I mean, everything that we do, it should be in connection with the Lord. The definition of sinful activities was very, I thought charity is a good thing, but Prabhupada says even charity becomes sinful if it is not. If it is based on false ego, of our own self.
Yeah. Because actually, in the highest level, even doing all these pious activities of charity, what is going to happen? You're going to get a lot of piety. A lot of piety means what? You have to go to Swargaloka to spend that piety. And devotee, even going to Swargaloka, what's the point? You'll spend all those piety, you'll come back here. Like, what's the point? Yeah. So unless our relationship with Krishna, which actually starts off by chanting the holy name of the Lord, then we are actually trying to get out. Otherwise, karma, what is it? Karma kanda, jnana kanda, kevale vishaya bhanda. Only devotees can say this. That karma kanda, jnana kanda, they're all like poison. All we want is devotion to the Lord, service to the Lord. Thank you. Karuna Purna Shaktimati, do you have a point?
Yes and no. I was just really fascinated by something back in text 2.
Mm-hmm.
In the purport, Prabhupada said that in the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the supreme living entity and is supplying the necessities of all other living entities. Thus, all living entities, and this is the part that really got me, is both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And even the Vishnu Tattva expansions, plenary portions, they're subordinate to Krishna. That just really got me. It's something that I want to read up a little more about.
Because all other living things, both Vishnu are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Subordinate to Krishna. Right? Because we know Krishna. Eti Shamsha Kala Purusha, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. So even all the Vishnu Tattvas, they are actually all expansions of Krishna. So that way they are actually dependent on Krishna. So, okay. 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 So let's, any other?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, last one.
Yeah, so everything is very, very nice point, like from ignorance to passion, and then in the goodness, and then we will get the knowledge, and this knowledge we have to like use our senses in the like devotional service. And so everything, whatever we are doing, so center should be like Lord Krishna. Then, but the Maya is very, very powerful, so very, very careful. So anytime like false ego, oh, I am doing, I in mind, that is very, very powerful. Enemies are there, so very careful for, I'm talking myself also. So
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
That's fine. The point about goodness, the first purport that we read. And actually, I was just recently hearing that unless the jiva is in the mode of goodness, he cannot taste Krishna consciousness. Unless the jiva is on the platform of goodness, cannot get that taste for Krishna conscious activities.
Yes.
So it's so important, like why Bhagavad Gita Krishna is talking so much about the modes. So we should have to live our life in a mode of goodness. Live a life in mode of goodness, because that's so conducive that in that mode of goodness, sattva guna, then when we are engaging in activity of devotion service, then we can get a taste for these activities. Right? But thank you. Okay, so let's take a quick break. In 5 minutes, we'll come back. We'll continue what devotee says and then how Kapila Muni replies to his mother. Okay, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. So please come back and continue. Okay, so let's continue. We have text number 11. So this is the last verse that Devotee speaks to Kapila, and then Kapila will start giving the answers. So let's do text 11.
Text 11. Tam tvagataham sharanam sharanyam swabhritya samsara tarokudharam Jigyasayaham prakrite purushasya namami sadharma vidam varishtham.
Okay, who's to read?
Bhakti Gopal. Maybe a Vijay Radhika Mataji, you can go.
Hare Krishna. Devahuti continued, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so here, so this is a final verse what she's speaking, and she's saying, Sharanam Sharanyam. I take shelter of you, Sharanyam, because you're the only person worth taking shelter. And why is he the only person worth taking shelter? We read in previous verses, what did she say? Her problem is because of what? Her illusion and false ego is because of what?
Maya.
Maya. And Maya is whose energy? Krishna's energy, right? So hence he's actually making the point that you are the person worth taking shelter of. Therefore, I take shelter of you. Then swabritya, samsara taroho katoram. Taroho means tree, right? So you are swabritya samsara. For your dependence in this material world, for everyone in this material existence, you are like the kutaram. Kutaram means axe. You are like the axe who can cut the tree, the taroho of samsara, the taroho, the tree of attachment to this material existence. You are like the axe who can actually cut it, right? And then further she says, jigyasaya, I am actually inquisitive to know what? Prakriti and Purusha. What does it mean, Prakriti and Purusha? Matter and spirit. Prakriti is considered matter and Purusha as spirit, or also Prakriti and Purusha refers to man and woman. So hence Prabhupada in translation he says man and woman and spirit and matter. Right? Between man and woman and between spirit and matter. So between Prakriti and Purusha, what is this relationship? I want to know more. Right? So please explain that. I am Jigyasa. I am inquisitive. Know this. Namami Saddharma Vidham Varisham. I offer obeisances. Namami. I'm offering obeisances to you because you are Saddharma Vidham Varishtam. Varishtam is the greatest. Vidam, the knower of Saddharma. Because you are the knower of what is the highest dharma for everyone, hence I am offering you obeisances. So you please speak to me and tell me what is that Saddharma, that eternal dharma. What is that? Savaipumsa paro dharma yata bhakti adokshaya. So that bhakti is the highest dharma. So naturally we see in this verse also, she's asking, please speak that Saddharma. That Saddharma is bhakti. So that's what Kapila Muni is going to speak. He's going to propagate pure, unmotivated devotional service. Right? That verse says what? Savai pumsa paro dharma yato bhakti radhashte ahetuki apratihata. That's the quality, right? Ahetuki. So that's what Kapila Muni is going to speak. Ahetuki apratihata bhakti. Right? So Saddharma. So Prabhupada says dharma is not religion. What is dharma? What's dharma?
Devotional service.
Okay, that's the highest dharma. But when you say dharma, dharma means that which cannot be changed. Right? So Prabhupada says, because, our dharma, if I say my dharma is a dharma of, being in a particular relationship, that will change. My dharma is doing so and so employee job. That's going to change. A real dharma, that which will not change. Like in Jaiva Dharma, this example is given. Like, what is the dharma of water? What's the dharma of water?
Liquid and
Liquid. And what?
it make things wet.
Okay. So liquid. Let's take the property of liquid. Now, under conditions, it will become ice. Is being in ice state the dharma? No, it's not the natural state. So the natural state of water is liquidity. So similarly, that state which cannot be changed, That is our real dharma. So our real dharma is the state, the constitutional nature of us as being spirit souls. And that nature is actually pure, unmotivated devotional service to the Lord. And because you are the knower of this, hence, please tell me, enlighten me in this wisdom. Also, this point about Prakriti and Purusha, right? So, who is Prakriti? Who is Purusha? So, we have three, right? We have the material nature. She's Prakriti or Purusha? Prakriti, right? The material nature, we say Prakriti. Second, we have us as Jivas, Tatastha. Are we Prakriti or Purusha?
We are marginal in between.
No, but what is the nature of it? Are we Prakriti or Purusha?
Prakriti.
Prakriti, right? Can anyone quote a verse where it says that we are actually Prakriti, Bhagavad Gita? So if you see in the 7th chapter, text 4 is what? Bhumir apo nalovai kam manu buddhir evacha ahankar iti ame vinna prakritim astata. Prakriti. So what is Prakriti? Earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, Prakriti. These 8 are my energies, separated energies. These are Prakriti. What is the next verse? Apareyam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhav yedam dharite jagat. Right? But there is another superior energy of mind, which is actually Prakriti, which is Prakriti. So Krishna is saying that we jivas are also Prakriti. Right? We are also Prakriti, but right now we are considering ourselves as Purusha. We are considering ourselves as enjoyer, and hence we are exploiting the material resources. Right? We are exploiting the material. So Prakriti and Purusha, one way can be considered as how Prabhupada says, enjoyer and enjoyed. Are we enjoyers or are we enjoyed? We are actually to be enjoyed. Right? So we are part and parcel of Krishna. And when we actually serve that absolute Purusha, then we can actually become enjoyers. So our enjoyment is in giving enjoyment to Krishna. Hence, we are actually Prakriti, right? But now, in this material world, we are falsely considering ourselves to a Purusha. And as long as we consider, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller, then we'll be in this material world, right? Okay. So Prabhupada in the purport, he also the tree of material existence. Okay, yeah. So because this verse also talks of the tree, like he says, you're the axe to cut the tree of material enjoyment. So where is Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks of the tree of material attachment?
I think 15th chapter.
15th chapter, right? Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakam.
Adha Shakam.
So it is the original tree in spiritual world, but that reflection is here in this material world, just like a tree on the banks of the water body. And because we are attached to the reflection, we are attached to this material world. But then after that, what do they say? Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha adhyatma nitya vinivishta kama. That one should cut this tree with the weapon of detachment. Right? So Krishna is saying with the weapon. So basically here, when she says that you are the axe to cut away, is basically saying that your wisdom that you give can give that mood of detachment to cut the tree of attachment to this material world. Okay? Therefore, I offer obeisances unto you. So this is the final verse that Devotee speaks. So first is, dispel my illusion, and first she actually expresses how she's disgusted with this material world. She says, please dispel my illusion. I take shelter of you, and you're the only person taking shelter, and only you can take away the influence of Maya. Therefore, you please, I'm doing namami, I'm offering obeisances, and you please give me the wisdom, particularly this relationship between Prakriti and Purusha. Okay, now let's see what Kapila Muni speaks.
Next 12. Maitreya Uvacha iti svamatu niravadyamipsitam nisham yapumsam apavarga vardhanam dhiya binandyatmavatam satam gatir babhasha ishat smita shobhitanam. Vamos seguir o papo ali?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Hare Krishna.
So Maitreya Vacha. So it says iti. Thus, after all this devotee spoke, Swa Matuhu, his mother, Nirvedyam Ipsitam Nishamya. After hearing, so Kapila Muni, he heard her Ipsitam Nishamya, her uncontaminated desire, right? So it was a very pure, sincere inquiry by Devahuti, where she clearly said that she admitted that, oh, I am overcome by your Maya, right? So she expressed her confession. She surrendered her confession of material entanglement to Krishna. I mean, it's not like, this is that aspect of sincerity, that we accept how we are entangled in this material, how we are suffering in this material. We accept that. And devotee sincerely made that. So hence it says, Ipsitam Nishamya, her uncontaminated desire. For what? Pumsam Apavarga Vardhana. To actually get that transcendental realization by which she can actually give up this bodily existence. So devotee, her words are so sincere that here Maitreya Rishi is actually saying that hearing this uncontaminated desire for getting free from this bodily existence, Dhiya Abhidandya, mentally he thanked her, so as a son, mentally he was saying, oh, mother, you ask so good questions. Right? So mentally he thanked her, and then he smiled, and then he started speaking. Right? And what did he speak? Gati Atma Vatam Satam. That knowledge which is part of transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. So anyone who is interested in self-realization will appreciate this knowledge that with Kapila Muni is going to speak. Right? So why did he smile? And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna smiled, right? Similar to that, if you see that 2.789, right? Similar, we are seeing here, kind of similar mood, right? Devotee and Kapila. Why did Krishna smile there? And why is Kapila smiling here?
When Krishna is pleased, he smiles. So he's pleased with the question.
Okay, he's pleased with the question. So he's saying, oh, finally, Arjun, you came to me. I have all the answers. You were using your own intelligence to try to figure it out, and he had an emotional breakdown. But you have come to me, everything will be fine. Hence he smiles. Right? Now here, actually, it says Kapila smiles because he's saying, this is my mother. How can my mother be in illusion? So it's not possible. But I will still speak for the benefit of all people. Just using my mother as an instrument, I will give this knowledge to everyone. Otherwise, she's my mother. How can she be in illusion? So in that way, he's actually smiling, and then he starts speaking. So Prabhupada makes a point that devotee has surrendered her confession of material entanglement and her desire to gain release. Right. So these 2 points that we have seen in devotees' prayers is actually, words, is actually very nice points that we can remember when we offer prayers to Krishna. The one is we sincerely admit, Krishna, I am tired of this material existence. Second point, Krishna, I want to come back to you. So both these aspects should be there in our prayer, right? So can you think of any verses where you see both these aspects? I'll tell you one. In Shastakam, if you see, Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patita Ma Vishame Bhamboda. Very clearly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is praying that I have fallen into this material world. Right? So he's admitting sincerely, I've fallen into the material world. And then what is the other aspect to it? Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patita Ma Vishame Bhamboda. I've fallen into the material world. Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja. You please shower your mercy upon me. And Stitaduli Sadrisham Vishintaya. And you actually place me as pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So both aspects we see in this prayer. So it's nice to, when we say prayers to Krishna, have these both aspects. Express our sincere, aspect with our material world that, oh, I'm tired. And then, Krishna, I just want to come back to you. I want to serve you. Right? So we see this very nice practical point. Okay, 13.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atto Paritir Yatra Dukhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha.
Is my turn?
Yes, Mataji.
The personality of God had answered. The yoga system, which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in this material world, is the highest yoga system.
Okay. So here, so what is the first verse that Kapila speaks? He says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Kapila spoke, Yoga Adhyatmika, right? This Adhyatmika yoga means what? The yoga which is actually concerning Adhyatmika, right? What is Adhyatmika? It's referring to our spirit self. So the yoga which is pertaining to our spirit self, right? Jivatma, Mata me is approved by me. Right? Yoga, which is pertaining directly to our spiritual self, is approved by me. Pumsam Nishrayasya. And this yoga is for the ultimate benefit of all living entities. Nishrayasya. That yoga is the ultimate benefit. Atyanta, this complete form of yoga is the highest. And yatra uparita dukhasya cha sukhasya. So, and it is this kind of yoga which causes detachment from dukkha and sukha, from distress and happiness. Right? So that's the kind of yoga I'm going to talk about. So what is yoga that Kapila Muni is going to talk about? What is Adhyatmika yoga? Atyanta, which is actually complete form of yoga, the highest. We already referred to this, right? What is this yoga that he's going to talk about?
Sankhya Yoga.
Sankhya Yoga.
No, but previously what did
Self-realization.
Okay, self-realization. Okay. When we said when devotee says Sad Dharma Vidam Varishtam, then please speak on the highest dharma. What is that yoga?
Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga.
Right. So if you see Prabhupada in this purport, he stresses that here, basically Kapila Muni is going to talk about Bhakti Yoga. Now, if you see in the following chapters, 7 chapters as I mentioned, we'll see Kapila Muni talk about 3 kinds of yogas. Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Astanga Yoga. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that this is the seed verse. When he says Adhyatma Yoga is a seed verse from which these 3 types of yogas will be explained. And of these 3, it will be established that Bhakti is the highest. Right? Just like in Bhagavad Gita. Why does Krishna explain Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga when Bhakti is the highest? Because he talks of all others and say how that will lead to Bhakti, how Bhakti is the highest. So similarly, when here Kapila says Adhyatmika Yoga, he's going to talk about Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga. And we'll see all these sections in the further chapters. Right? And then he's going to establish how Bhakti is actually Atyanta, is the complete form and the highest form of yoga. Right? Now, this point about this form of yoga will give freedom from happiness and distress. Right? Now, if you see Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna starts speaking, he first pointed what? He says, Dayinu asmi yata dehe komaram yonam jara. That we are not this body, we are spirit soul. And what is immediately the next verse he speaks? Matra sparsha sukonte sitoshna sukadukada. Immediately he makes the point. Yes, when we understand that we are spirit soul, that means then we have to tolerate the happiness and distress of this material world. Right? So similarly here, Kapila Muni is saying, yes, I'm going to speak about the highest form of yoga, and that yoga will give you detachment from dukkha and sukha. And the Prabhupada and the purport explains, in this material world, every time there is some happiness, there is some distress associated with it. Example? What example can you think about? Anything, what example quickly comes to your mind? That anything what you do, whenever there's happiness, there's a distress associated with it, it's connected with it.
Birth and death, Prabhu.
Oh, that's like a big thing. Okay, yeah. So if we have someone is born in a family, it's immediately like, oh, so much happiness. But we know eventually there'll be problems, there'll be disease, there'll be old age, there'll be death. Okay, happiness. But in a day-to-day,
Overeating and
yeah, you eat too much. Oh, so tasty. I just want to keep eating. Immediately,
discomfort.
stomach pain, all those things. Right? What are the examples?
You buy a big house and then you have to work to pay for it.
You buy a big house and you have to pay the mortgage, and not only that, you have to maintain the big house. So happiness, oh, I got such a big house, but distress associated. Everything in this material world has happiness and distress, duality. Right? So Prabhupada's example, I asked you to think about examples because I wanted to bring the light on Prabhupada's example. He says, if someone wants to drink milk, then what he has to do? He has to take the trouble of maintaining a cow. I mean, we won't think of such examples, but see Prabhupada's mood. Yes, milk is so important. You want to have milk? Okay, take the distress of maintaining, feeding a cow, taking care of a cow, milking the cow, etc., etc. But anyway, that's how Prabhupada explains this. But we can see, the law of the material world is as soon as we get material happiness, there's going to be material distress. Okay? And then best yoga, bhakti yoga, actually elevates us beyond this platform, right? Beyond this platform of happiness, distress, where we see, which all verses can we see? We already mentioned one. Matra sparsha sukhanteya, sitoshna sukha dukkha. Sukha dukkha, we actually become transcendental. Then what are the other verses? Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochati, na kanchati. When it comes to the Brahma Bhuta platform, no more hankering, no more lamentation, right? No more that duality of happiness and distress, right? So different verses to explain this.
Prabhuji, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So in the translation, it mentions the yoga system which relates to Lord and individual meant for ultimate benefit, which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in material world, is the highest yoga system.
Right.
Are they talking about maintaining equanimity? And is that considered as the highest yoga here? Is that Sankhya yoga?
Okay, so that kind of yoga, which the byproduct of that kind of yoga is detachment of this material world, right? Which causes, it says here, causes detachment for happiness and distress. And which is a kind of yoga that really causes that detachment from happiness and distress? Which kind of yoga has vairagya as a byproduct of it? Right, so this comes in the first canto, second chapter. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga. What's the continuation? Janati asu vairagyam jnanam chadyat ahetukam. Right. So in the first canto, second chapter itself, Suta Goswami is speaking and saying the highest form of yoga is what? Bhakti yoga. Why? Because the byproducts of that yoga is detachment and knowledge. Right. So Prabhupada in this purpose, he makes the point that when one engages in bhakti, automatically one gets detachment and knowledge. They are byproducts, right? So hence this kind of yoga, what is being explained as the highest, has to refer to bhakti yoga, because no other yoga actually gives that vairagya as a byproduct. Maybe someone has to cultivate vairagya separately, but bhakti is giving that as a byproduct.
So here detachment is, so I know when we talk about detachment, automatically a mind goes to, oh, we are going vanaprastha, we are going to get away from everybody. And that is what you're referring to as vairagya?
No, vairagya is just like here it says detachment from what? All happiness and distress in the material world. That means, yes, the platform, like how you mentioned, equanimity. When we are engaged in bhakti yoga, then the happiness and distress of this material world, they are one way, a devotee may experience all these things, but he is not affected by all these things. Yes, happiness or distress. Whatever is the situation, how can I connect this situation to Krishna? That is the focus of a devotee. So that way is actually transcendental to happiness and distress. It's not, the aspect of like finally taking renunciation, right? That's not what is being referred. Vairagya means detachment from the attachment to this material world. And
Okay. Just wanted to get that clarified, because in my mind, normally that's always the question. Detachment is, and then you say vairagya, and then you think, oh, it's totally detachment from all human life. But that's not what Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam is stating. It is definitely only detachment from, or being on the plane of equanimity.
Right. So detachment from the false attachment.
Okay.
Right?
Thank
False.
you.
And we'll come further, like this aspect of attachment. That's what next Kapila Muni is going to speak. Right? Okay. So dukasya sukasya cha. Further. 14.
Text 14. Tam imam te pravakshyami yam avocham puranage rishinam shrotu kamanam yogam sarvanganaipunam.
O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formally to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way.
It's so interesting that here he's saying Anaga, right? O pious mother. And he says, Pravakshami, I will explain to you. Tam imam, this very knowledge. Avocham pura rishina. That I formally explained to sages such as Narad Muni, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Shrotu Kama, who were very eager to hear, Yogam Sarva Angam Naipunam. So let me come back to that part. But here, see, I mean, he is Lord, he's the Supreme Personality of God. So he can create a new system, right? I mean, like no one will say anything. He's the Supreme Personality of God. Let's say he creates some process, then everyone will say he's Lord. He can do it. But even the Lord is actually saying, I will give you knowledge which I actually explained previously to the sages. So even the Lord is actually establishing the importance of not creating something, but just giving the knowledge that has already been passed through a parampara system. How important is this? Right? How important is this? It's not like as soon as you create something, then immediately the purity, the authenticity is lost. We just, what we accept, what we receive from our previous acharyas, we just pass it down, and hence it is pure. Hence it is pure. This knowledge is absolute knowledge. There is no like something alternate to this. This is the highest truth, right? This is the highest truth. So if you just receive it and pass it down, then it's correct. So even Kapilev, so that's a proper focus on his purpose. Right? Kapilev, Supreme Personality, he could have established a new system, but even he's saying, I'm going to stick to authority. What I've explained to the sages, that's what I'm going to tell it to you. And then the last part here, Yogam Sarva Angam Naipunam. I'm going to explain this yoga system, which is Prabhupada used the word serviceable and practical in every way. What does this mean? Serviceable and practical? So one way you can consider serviceable means it is actually useful for everyone. Everyone can take to bhakti. And practical, like everyone can engage in this aspect of bhakti. It is actually doable for everyone. Right? Applicable to everyone, and everyone can practice bhakti. Right? So both the aspects. So this is what Kapila Muni is going to explain. I'm going to talk of this yoga. Everyone can do it, and everyone can, And the one way Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Sarva Anga means the many angas of bhakti are actually easy to perform. Like easy to perform. Hence, it's practical for everyone. Okay? Everyone still with me? Yes? No? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's continue next.
Chetakalvasya bandhaya muktaye chatmanomatam guneshu saktam bandhaya ratam va pumsi muktaye.
So actually, sorry, before we continue, Prabhupada in the purport, he mentioned that when we have such a super excellent process already present in the Vedas, what is there a need to create a new system? But now what is the fashion? People want to create. Oh, this is new. And as soon as it's new, then people are attracted. Oh, this is new. Hence, I want to take it. Otherwise, Veda is boring, it's like so long, who knows, applicable or not. If something new, then I want to take. But Prabhupada says, no. Vedas has such a super excellent process already explained that nothing else can match to it. So hence what we receive, we pass it down, right? Okay. So 15 translation.
The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by three modes of material nature, the conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation.
So in 15, so now one way 13 and 14 is just like kind of saying the foundation. Okay, I will explain to you what I've already explained. Now let's start. 15, the first, philosophically, if you see the first words that Kapila Muni is speaking, what does he say here? He's talking about the importance of the mind. The mind is a pivot, right? Mind is a pivot. So he says, Chetaha, the consciousness, Khalu, of every Atmana, of every Jiva, is considered one, Bandhaya, means bondage, when Guneshu Saktam, when it is attracted to the three modes of material nature. Our consciousness is considered to be in bondage when it's attracted to three modes. But the same consciousness is considered to be muktaye, liberation, when ratim pumsi. Ratim pumsi means when there is rati to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when there is that rati or attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our consciousness is pure or liberated. When that consciousness is attracted to the three modes of material nature, that means the consciousness is bonded. Right? So that consciousness or the mind here, that is the central point. Right? So Prabhupada says there's a distinction between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Krishna consciousness means we have rati to Krishna. Maya consciousness means we are attached to the three modes of material nature. Right? Okay. So now, so the first philosophical point is the consciousness is there either here or there. If they're attached to Krishna, they're liberated. Attached to modes of material nature, it is contaminated. Right? So these two. Now let's see what are the symptoms of a mind which is attached to Krishna. Right? We said that is liberated, right? What are the symptoms of that mind? Okay, what do we know from Bhagavad Gita? What is the symptoms of a mind of a spiritual person? Who can say? Any points?
Maybe always think of Krishna.
Okay, the mind is always thinking of Krishna. Okay, then?
Willing, thinking and willing.
Okay, thinking and willing. Okay, that's the functions of the mind. But what is the symptom of a mind which is liberated?
You mean Sthita Prajna stage?
Okay, Sthita Prajna. So can you explain what is Sthita Prajna? Like what symptoms are there?
Like they are compared to turtle, like they will be withdrawing senses.
Okay, so they actually have the power to engage the senses when it's required and then disengage when it's not required. Nice. What else?
Peace and calm mind.
Okay, peace and calm mind. Okay.
Equanimous mind.
Equanimous, yeah, equanimity. Okay, good. What else?
Sukham dukham samay krutva.
Yeah, so sukham dukham. He's again equanimous in happiness, distress. Right, all the symptoms of the liberated mind. Right? Actually, in Bhagavad Gita, one of the main points that he actually says is the mind of such a person, he finds satisfaction within, not satisfaction outside. And satisfaction is a key word. We are all looking for satisfaction, but the mind of a spiritual person finds satisfaction within. Now, let's see what Kapila Muni says. What is the symptom of a liberated mind? And 2 verses talks about that. Okay, so 16. Let's see.
Aham mamabhimano tai kamalobhadhibhir malai vitam yadamana shuddham adhukam asukham samam.
Translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine. One's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Hare
Right.
Krishna.
So from this verse, what do we see as symptoms of the mind of a person who's liberated? Yada, when vita malahi, mala means impurities. When all the impurities, one is freed of all the impurities. And what are those impurities? Kama, lobha, adibihi. Lust, greed, etc. Anger, pride, envy, illusion, all those things. So when one's mind is freed from these impurities, and then further, uttaihi, where are these impurities produced from? Aham mama abhimana, from that misconception of I and mine. So when the impurities of lust, anger, greed is purified, which arise from that misconception of I and mine, then manaha shuddham, that is pure mind. That is pure mind. And in that pure mind, what is the symptom? Adukam, asukam, samam. He sees sukha and dukkha as sama, as equal, equipoised in happiness or distress, or he transcends happiness or distress. Right? So everyone is following me, right? What is the symptom of a liberated mind? When all these, the mind is purified of calm, lobha, etc., which are arising from misconception of I and mine, then the mind is actually said to be purified. And how can one see that? When happiness and distress, that person will not be disturbed. Okay? So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually makes the point that the mind, actually, it cannot be vacant. Mind cannot be vacant. Mind has to be engaged somewhere. If it's not engaged in Krishna, it will be engaged in Maya, right? So then he makes the point. Therefore, we should engage our mind in Krishna. If our mind is engaged in Krishna, then our consciousness will be fully purified, and then there will be no chance of entrance of lust, greed, envy, etc., etc. Okay? Purified mind. Yes? I know it's 2.5 hours, everyone's mind is tired. But you can meditate on what will your purified mind look like, right? Okay, next verse. This is 17. Right? We are continuing the point about how a purified mind looks like. Okay, 17.
Tada purusha atmanam kevalam prakrite param nirantaram swayam jyotir animanam akhanditam.
Who's next?
At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size.
Okay. So tada, so we are continuing that when we read previously, when the mind is free of this impurity, then what happens? Tada Purushaha, the individual soul, Atmana, himself. So we see ourselves as what? Kevalam, pure. We see ourselves as pure. Prakrite Param, we see that we are pure, the spirit soul is pure. It is transcendental to this material existence. Prakrite Param. Third point, so first is pure, second transcendental material existence, third is Nirantaram, Swayam Jyoti. It actually sees that the spirit soul is not different in quality to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Paramatma. Right? So when one's mind is pure, he can see himself like this, that I am pure, I am a part and parcel of Krishna, I am non-different qualitatively with Krishna, I have nothing to do with this material nature. He can see all this. Then further, Animana. Yes, I am non-different to Krishna, but I am Animana. I am infinitesimal. The Lord is unlimited, but I am a tiny drop. Right? And then Akhanditam. And I am not a fragmented, like how material fragmentation. It's not that I'm fragmented part of the Lord, right? Eternally, I am separated from the Lord. Okay. So pure mind will identify himself with these symptoms, right? So 5 symptoms. Who can say? I feel like everyone is too tired, so I have to ask more questions. Who can say 5 symptoms of the... How will you see? If your mind is purified, how will you see yourself? I am who?
Non-different from the
Okay, one point, you will see yourself as non-different from Supreme Personality of God. Second point, you'll see yourself as who?
Same in quality.
What's that?
Same in quality, yes.
Oh, same in quality. Okay, that's same like what Mata said. Non-different. Nirantaram. Swayam Jyoti. Same in quality. What are the other points? You'll see yourself as what?
Pure and transcendental to material existence.
Pure. So pure. Second point. Third, you see yourself, I am transcendental to material existence. Right? I'm beyond the material. And then fourth,
Akhanditam, not fragmented.
I'm not fragmented. And fifth,
Animanam.
Animanam, infinitesimal. Like, though I'm non-different from the Lord, but I am a drop, and the Lord is the ocean. Right? So with a pure mind, one can identify yourself. No longer will say, I am this body, I am Aditya, I am this, Indian, I am so and so. No, I am this. I'm pure spirit soul with these qualities. Right? That's how we see ourselves as. Okay. So Prabhupada explains, Animana means infinitesimal. That means we are 1/10,000 the size of the tip of the hair. So recently we were in Govardhan retreat, and Bhurijan Prabhu was making the point. He was making the point on humility. And he was saying, if you really consider who we are, and he said, like he's very funny in the way he speaks, he has a subtle sense of humor. So he was saying, so if you put 10,000 Bhurijans together, Bhurijan Prabhu, saying if you put 10,000 Bhurijans together, and we're hearing and we're thinking like, oh, Bhurijan Prabhu is right here, 10,000 Bhurijans together. And we're thinking like, okay, 10,000 personalities. He's saying if you put 10,000 Bhurijans together, then it will be the size of a tip of the hair. And when he said that, it was immediately like, oh, when you talk of, he's really identifying like with a spirit soul. If you put 10,000 spirit souls together, then it is the size of a tip of a hair. That's how insignificant we are. And he was making the point that, this is when humility means we just understand who we are. So we can think of ourselves. If you put 10,000 Vamshi Gopal Prabhus together, then it is the size of tip of the hair. That way. It's interesting to think in that way. So Animana, 1/10,000 tip of the hair. Nirantaram, non-different. Akhanditam, not exactly fragmented. That means what? Are we fragmented, part and parcel of Krishna? Yes, fragmented in a sense, separated. But it's not like a material separation that, I have a piece of paper, I tear out one small part of the paper. It's not like that. Eternally, we are separated. Right? So it is not like a material thing that if I tear a piece of paper from a sheet of paper, then that paper is so much less. Right? So much less. But with the Lord, we are eternally separate and still the Lord is still complete. Right? Complete and perfect. Right? So it is not like a material fragmentation, and hence the word akhanditam is used. Okay, I think we'll have to stop here. Like everyone's tired. So, okay, so last 2 verses, what did we discuss? So what is Kapila Muni's instructions, right? Up to this point. First, he said, I'm going to give you this knowledge, which is the highest form of yoga, right? And it will cause detachment from happiness and distress. I'm going to give you this knowledge. Then second point, what did he say? I spoke the same knowledge to different sages who were actually very eager to hear. I'm just giving you that knowledge. I'm not creating something new. Even the Lord is saying, I don't create any new system. I just give what is already given, right? Second point. Third point, he talks about the mind. And he says the mind, if it's attached to the 3 modes of material nature, it is bonded. In bondage, the mind is attached to Krishna, Pumchi, then it is liberated. Right? What is a symptom of the mind which is liberated? And 2 verses. First verse is what? Where he actually says, the mind, when it becomes free of lust, anger, greed, etc., etc. Then the mind, what did we read? Then the mind is said to be pure. And where is this lust, anger, greed produced from? From the concept of I and mine. So the mind gets pure from this conception of I and mine, and is actually free from lust, anger, greed, etc. And how can you see what is a symptom of a person whose mind is purified? Then he sees happiness and distress with an equal vision, right? Further, what is the vision of a person whose mind is purified? He sees himself, and he sees that I am what? I'm just the size, 1/10,000, the size of a tip of a hair. I am pure. I am non-different from the Lord, right? But I'm not like materially fragmented. I'm just a drop, and the Lord is infinite. That's how I'm seeing myself, right? That is the vision of a person with a pure mind. Okay. Now the next section is how can we attain a pure mind? Right? So this is where the yoga system, the bhakti yoga system will be elaborated. So next few verses are very excellent. It talks of a quality of a devotee and basically makes the point the only way we can get a purified mind is by bhakti yoga. But how would you elaborate that point?
Concentrating our mind in Krishna.
Okay. Further?
Associating.
Engaging all the senses in the service of Krishna.
Okay, all those good points. But Sri Radhe Mataji, what did you say?
Associating with.
Yes. So bhakti comes from where? Bhakta. So basically now the next section is very nice, where it says, okay, we are talking about purified mind. The purified mind means we have to get the bhakti. Where will that bhakti come from? A bhakta. How do we identify a bhakta? That is given. The primary and secondary symptoms of a devotee, right? What is the activity of a devotee? And then that famous verse, Satam prasanga mama virya sammido bhavanti rit karna rasana. When we actually come to such devotees, and what do? When we hear bhavanti rit karna rasayankara, tad josha apavarga vartami shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramash. That's how you get bhakti. Shraddha, rati, bhakti, all the way to bhakti can be obtained from this process. By this process, our mind will be purified. Right? So that's the next section. Very important verses in the next section, which will continue next week. Okay. Okay. So we'll stop here. Any final comments, questions, realization?
Prabhu, I have a question. So if Kapila Muni is already giving the same knowledge that was given to Narad Muni in previously to great sages, why is that Kapila Muni's come back to give that same knowledge again? Is it just to fulfill Kardama Muni's desire to have Krishna as?
Yeah. So the point is, even in Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter, what does Krishna say? I gave this knowledge to the sun god before, but then what happened? It was lost. Hence, I am making you, Arjun, as the recipient of this knowledge so that you can pass it over. So the nature of this material world is spiritual knowledge, spiritual dham. All those get covered by the influence of Maya. So yes, Kapila Muni spoke this to Narad Muni, but we don't know when that conversation took place because we are starting this. Where are we reading? We are talking of the starting of the day of Brahma. So it could have been in previous Kalpa, or we don't know when, like, not specific. So now he's saying, okay, the knowledge is lost. I'm giving you again, Devahuti, mother, I'm giving you this knowledge so that everyone will be benefited. So the Lord comes again and again and gives the same knowledge, which is actually lost because of the influence of time in this material nature.
So later on, does Devahuti become a vehicle to impart this knowledge as well? Or
no, not
is it just
that part is not given? It is this conversation was given to Devahuti, and that conversation was known to Sukadeva Goswami, who gave it to Suta Goswami, and we are hearing the same knowledge, and by that we are actually getting the knowledge. So she was the recipient of the knowledge, or she was the instrument to get the knowledge through which the whole world can get this knowledge. Right? Like if Krishna would have not given this knowledge to Arjun, we would have not known the Bhagavad Gita. But we don't hear so much of Arjun actually going forward and giving this knowledge to others, right? But because the conversation took place, we have that access. Similarly, same point here. Right?
So it's like saying that maybe like in a different kalpa, this different galaxy, it may be that Krishna may say, I'd given this knowledge to Arjun before, but I'm now giving it to someone else. Like, could that could also happen, right?
I mean, that could happen. Krishna said, oh, I spoke Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years before on this earth planet, and because knowledge is lost, now I'm speaking it on a different planet. You know, I mean, it's all the same knowledge. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Final points?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much, Prabhuji. So I was just thinking about the 12th verse, like how Devavati, she wanted to meet the Lord, like how the Jiva souls, they want to go back to Godhead. So we can see the example of Vritrasur in his prayers, like how nicely he is eager to go back to Godhead. That is being explained in that. And about the smile of the Lord, yeah, like that the verses are there in 6th canto 11th chapter about the Vritrasur, the 4 prayers are the Bhagavad
Yes.
prayers. Yeah, in that he shows that how much he is eager to go back to God. Yeah. And then the other thing, like the smile of the Lord. So it is mentioned somewhere, like not mentioned, but some devotee were mentioning about the smile of the Lord. Like in in Kurukshetra also, Lord smiled when Arjuna was in anxiety. So that time Lord smiled. So it is mentioned that only the Jiva souls in that situation of a war and all, they get bewildered and they get tense. But Lord is above the modes. So when this kind of situation is there, so Jivas are in anxiety, but Lord could smile in that situation also. And once Mahavishnu Maharaj was explaining that wherever we see the smile, it means that we have to understand that Krishna is there. So that's why the person is able to smile. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your points, Mataji. Yeah.
So what is that last point, Mataji? Wherever we see a smile?
So we feel like Krishna's presence is there, like when we are smiling. Otherwise, we're in anxiety all the time in material world. But when we see the smiling person, so it reminds of Krishna. Like that he was mentioning.
Like, in 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm the ability in all men. When we see something nice, we say, oh, Krishna has given the ability. So similarly, when someone is happy, we can say, oh, Krishna has given some. So it is a way through which we can think about Krishna, like Vibhuti, right? One of the Vibhuti. So that way. Nice. I never heard about the smile as a Vibhuti, but it's nice to think in terms of like how ability. Similarly, we can think of the smile. Okay.
Was it like just one question is how we are not getting disgusted with the material nature? Is it because we are not cross questioning?
Why are we not getting disgusted with the material? As I said, that disgust will come only when we get the higher taste. And when will the higher taste come? When we engage in the activities of devotional service to give pleasure to the Guru. Right? When Guru's mercy comes, then the taste comes. So one way, as we progress in bhakti, to that extent, proportionately, the taste is coming. Like even now, as a stage of sadhaka, we can say that certain activities of the material world, we have no taste for. I mean, like, one transition we immediately say, if someone eats meat, they take bhakti, immediately they feel like disgust. Oh, meat eating is so horrible. Like even in the flight, someone next to you taking meat and you feel like, oh, this is horrible. So you have disgusted with that aspect at least. But there are more subtle aspects, and gradually as we progress, than even those subtle aspects. So the progress is there, but it's going to go more and more. So the disgust is going to go deeper and deeper. Right? So certain aspects we are disgusted, but as we progress, then all aspects of the material world will actually become disgusted. Right? So the taste has to grow stronger and stronger, and the taste will come when we engage in activities of devotional service to please Guru. And Guru sees, oh, he's doing so much for me, I'll give him more taste, more taste, more taste. right? So that's what we are aspiring for. We pray, let me get taste in chanting and hearing, right? So that way. Okay, so stop here. Thank you all so much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya, Kripa Sindhavya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you all so much. We'll see you all next